So it's 1080p now.
Oh, good. Great.
Yeah.
Hello,
And boom, we are live. 2.5 Oyajis, we're back. So we actually have a plan. We were planning to get a guest on, but the scheduling didn't work out for today. So probably next Saturday, we'll see how it goes. But we do want to get someone to talk about the downsides of AI, since that is sort of the big topic. So look out for that. We've got someone really good who I've talked a lot with, who's really knowledgeable about all the problems with AI and stuff. But today it's just us. So I don't know, Victor. Yeah, you talk, I react. We can make it up as we go along. It always works out pretty well when we do that. How you been?
Good. I actually, I guess our main thing will be the Yasaka Shrine incident.
Well, that's certainly that's one thing. I don't know if it's the biggest news of the week, but that's a thing that happened. Maybe people here, we can sort of talk about that. I don't know what else we got.
But about that topic, I think I kind of pussied out. I made a video on it, the other day, and I didn't. I originally wanted to reach out to Japanese because, the Twitter Japanese community is crazy. They're destroying that guy's life. So.
Are they really going after him that badly? I saw like the call to arms. Well, so before we dive into it, there are probably people here who don't know what this is about. So you should probably tell the story a little bit about what happened.
Do you want to show the video?
No, I don't want. I mean,
yeah, it's not necessary.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
tell everyone what happened.
Huh?
In a nutshell. I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal. I kind of I wrote a really long comment on your video as well.
So,
yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
A lot of people tell me, I saw your video, but they don't write any comments.
Yeah.
Okay, so the British guy, the camera, there's a video out there that went viral. Last count, like yesterday, had 25 million views.
Yeah.
And the video starts with a guy, I guess, it sounds like he just apologized or something. Oh, no.
Late at night in a shrine. A woman approaches a foreigner saying, hey, do you even know what you're apologizing for? Yes. That's how she starts out the video. So she's kind of like wanting to carry it on. Yeah.
I don't think you understand. Suji and I, right? Yeah. She said, you don't really get why I'm angry.
I was like, no, it's not over. It was kind of how the video started. So it looked like some incident had just sort of kind of finished, but she wasn't satisfied. And she was going back for more.
And then when an overweight British man with glasses walks by.
Overweight? Oh, the old guy. Yeah.
The old guy. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
He walks by and he says, "Get out of my sight. Get out of my sight." A couple of times. He's obviously fed up with her. So something's been happening before that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And it turns out, it sounds like from what we can piece together that somebody in their group there's a big rope at the shrine and at the very top of the shrine, at the very top of the rope, there's a big bell. And you ring it when you pray. You usually throw some money at it, you clap your hands. And I guess, when do you ring that thing? At the end of it?
You sort of, you throw the money in, you clap, you ring the bell so the gods hear your prayer, and then I don't know, then you go away. So maybe you pray after or something. But it's just you ring the bell after you pay the money. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was not happy with the way they were ringing it, apparently. Yeah. She thought it was disrespectful. From what we can put, right? Do you agree with that so far?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds okay. How it seems to be. It's unseen what happened before, but that's right. The Japanese descriptions are somebody was comedically and ridiculously, overly, vigorously ringing this bell at a Shinto shrine.
And it turns out it was the man who was being filmed, the young British guy. He seems to be the tour guide for these 2 or 3 other people that are in his group. And one of them is a woman who claims it was her fault. She takes credit for credit. She says, it's my fault. Don't
responsibility.
Blame
yeah.
Responsibility. Thank you. English is a very difficult language. So he approaches her quite quickly in the video saying, do you speak English? Do you speak English? And trying to tell her to leave them alone. But she's like, why do I have to speak English? And then she takes that question as sabetsu, which is a racist. She claims that that's racist to even ask that question.
So to throw a bit of color in, so the tour guide guy seems to be sort of intervening and kind of comes back at her. So she's chasing them, she's following them, and they're getting obviously uncomfortable. So he jumps in, and he kind of is pushing towards her, and kind of in a tone, is saying, "Do you speak English? Do you speak English?" And then he says, "Ego shabere ka?" Well, I wouldn't say fluent, but good Japanese, good Japanese.
Good.
And he asks, but he's kind of in a bullying tone a little bit, comes back at her in English, saying, "Can you speak English?" As soon as he says, "Eigo shibere ka," she's like, "Oh, you can speak Japanese." And it's like, you trying to force me to speak English you're discriminating against me, you're bullying me. So she was kind of taken aback but clearly it looked to me like, reflecting on the whole thing, on the video, it looks like this Gaijin guy's attacking her. But on reflection, obviously he's stepping into sort of in between her and his clients, right? So he's trying to tell her to back off. And he's using that thing that some foreigners do, that, how you see when you get pulled over by the police and you pretend not to speak Japanese. I don't know that this happens anymore, but back in the day, just speaking English would be enough to make people give up. People throw up their hands and they get exasperated. And maybe that's what he was hoping to do. He was hoping to make her throw up her hands. But he kind of gave away that he understood Japanese, which is kind of, and it was kind of a dick move. It was a kind of a dick move, but I think it was kind of intentional to get her to go, to leave his clients alone. So I kind of get it. But on the video, when you see this guy come up to you on the video, it looks really aggressive, and it looks like he's being a bit like supercilious is the term. It looks condescending, like, do you speak English?
And then when she says "habetsu" and he scoffs, and then he comes back at her in pretty good Japanese. And the fact that he understands that alone, obviously he's intermediate at least, or high intermediate.
Oh, it's pretty good Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, and he's very good with his insults. Like, he's very smooth. Damate, okay. Like, I never use that. Which
makes complete sense when you hear that he's lived in that he's married to a Japanese. So yeah, he's probably reciting insults he's heard before.
So but anyway, that's basically the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But she gets on Twitter. Oh, and apparently she went to the police to complain about him.
Yeah.
And
she goes on Twitter, and she goes on Twitter with the purpose of doxing him. She says, "A call to arms, everybody, let's identify this guy and find out. Please spread this, and let's find out who he is." And then the whole old Nichan rage mobs that used to go chase J-vloggers, but this is what she's trying to instigate. So it looks a little bit like she's, and thinking back on the video, it looks a little bit like, so she wasn't, so I understood this in the beginning. I thought she was someone who worked at the shrine. She was not. She was just someone there in the middle of the night with this other couple there. Yeah. And she's kind of, in Kyoto, it's a big thing about how a lot of rude foreigners are causing problems with people in Kyoto. And it looks like she's jumping on this theme, but it looks a little bit like she's looking for trouble. I don't know how bad it was in the beginning, but the fact that she takes this video and says, "Look at this horrible foreigner, bullying me at this shrine, let's identify." And he says he's lived in Japan. Let's find out who he is.
Right.
Yeah, that's a real old school Japanese, bullying thing. And, we both know people who have lost jobs like that, where the internet goes after people like that. So, kind of scary as well when Japanese go full on like that. But she's
really screw with you.
Intending to do that from the beginning. She wasn't like, "Oh, I had a terrible experience today at a shrine where I met this foreigner." She goes on the internet saying, "Hey, everybody, let's get this guy." So, she's clearly, I don't know, it looks like she may or may not have instigated the fight, and she's going onto the internet to carry it on. So while the guy comes across as a dick on the video, I'm kind of willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and she's clearly intending, she's not backing down, she's clearly looking for a fight.
Well, he could have handled it much better. I mean, I think even if you probably agree with that. Well,
the standard playbook, I mean, you or I'm sure in that situation, apologize and move away would be the thing to do, right? Like, sorry for the misunderstanding. But it appears that's where the video started, right? There's distance between them, and she's approaching them from a distance saying, wait, no. Do you even know what you're apologizing for? So it looks like she's looking to resume it, and she's pulled out the camera and decided to resume it. Yeah. So I don't know. It looked like it's possible he handled it the right way the first time, so he became aggressive, probably to get her to back off, like, to sort of counterpunch a bit. So it looks bad, but the more I think about it, I'm kind of like, to me, this is a nothing thing. I really hope he doesn't get consequences for it. But you're right, even in that situation, rather than confronting like that, I think the standard way is apologize and move away, right? I mean, so yeah.
And I was disappointed with the way he was treated. I mean, my opinion is that he's an asshole. The way he did.
He comes across like that. He comes across like that, but he's protecting his clients. So
yeah, good point. And in that case, he's not an asshole. He's being defensive, and so he's a good a tour guide in that respect.
But there again, is that the right way to handle it as a tour guide is the next question, right? Like, while it looks like he's looking to defend his clients at the same time, even as a tour guide, is that like what you put in the manual of how to handle a situation like this? It probably isn't. It's probably shuffle away.
There's a French YouTuber, maybe you know him. I forgot. I came across a video. I don't know him. He got a bunch of videos out there in Japanese. He's French, and he did a video on this guy. And he says he I don't know where he got the information, but he says that this is kind of a rating system for tour guides. Yeah. And apparently he had a bit of a history of making an appointment with guests who never showed up, and they complained to the police, and they had to go to the police. And he had to return the money. So there's all these allegations that maybe he's kind of shady, but that guy says, "Oh no, we just couldn't meet up. We just met. We there was a misunderstanding on the meeting place, but eventually he did give the money back." And, they tried to call him on the phone to get him to come, and he was like, he would hang up on them. And I don't know. Anyway, who knows what's true? But
so Victor, there's a question from Quint Rankin I've thrown up on the screen. So how did this all? So that's the background. This went on the internet. Call to arms. You said it's got 25 million views. So obviously half of the Japanese internet's seen it. So what's happened? Can you give an update? Do you know anything about what's happened since this went viral?
I've talked to, I don't want to mention his name, but a guy who's deep in the Japanese community and pretty big there. He contacted me about this, and he said, he said like they're trying to dox this guy, and I think they're kind of overreacting. And he told me what he thought his name was, and that he'd apparently reached out to someone to clear his name, and I put links to that on my video, but yeah, they try to find out who he is, and they try to find out where he worked, and they reported him to his page, and apparently it's been taken down. Whatever online presence he had as a tour guide has disappeared since then. Yeah. But again, it's hearsay. I mean, I looked into it quite a bit, but I was really disappointed in the way Japanese were dealing with him, and I wanted kind of to explain that to Japanese. So my initial feeling was I should make a video in Japanese to tell.
No.
But then I thought, that's just going to welcome.
The thing is, the people there are not looking to have it explained to them. The people who go after this, and the thing is as well, so there are these anonymous foreigners, like the viral video of the woman in Gion, like blocking the way of the geisha, trying to, video her with the smartphone. I don't know if you've seen that. But sorry?
Can I show my screen?
Sure.
How do I...
just use the present down the bottom. Yep.
Video file. Here we go.
But there are all these examples. You've got it there. Yeah, you've got all these examples like this.
This is the most famous one. This is everyone's seen this by now on TikTok.
Yeah. Of just badly behaving Kyoto, tourists in Kyoto, and so I'd say there's probably a willing audience of people looking for a gaijin that they can actually target and do something about. Like, these people are, flying out, the day after they arrive. If they find someone who says on the video that he lives there and is wronging a local Japanese person somehow, then, it's been a big topic, the backlash against.
That's what was interesting to me is, unlike the geisha woman we just saw, this guy actually lives here. He's a resident, so he's more.
That's the point. Yeah. So they can get him. So there's a lot of people that just want to get one of these foreigners who's ruining Kyoto. but as another comment I made on your video, Kyoto has this funny thing as well, where although it's a really popular tourist destination, it's really famously insular. Like, if you ever talk to Japanese people who have lived in Kyoto, you've always got to ask them, are you from Kyoto, or did you just live there? And they know what that question means, because a lot of people who work for Nintendo, which is a company in Kyoto, whatever, people from out of town, if you haven't lived in Kyoto for 2 or 3 generations, even nowadays it's really difficult to rent within the central sort of rings of the city. Like, those areas they discriminate more against Japanese than they discriminate against foreigners, because we pay and we leave. But people who live there, Kyoto are they've got this thing there where they've never really accepted the capital moving to Tokyo 500 years ago, whatever. They still believe that they're at the top of the chain. Kyoto people get really pissed off if you use the term Kansai to them. Oh, I don't understand Kansai, Ben. And they're like, oh, don't group us with those Osaka and and Hyogo Neru wills. They really think they're above everybody. And by the way, the Nara people still think they're better than the Kyoto people as well.
The original capitals,
The original capital. But they do have this thing about, there's this sort of pride there, and there's this kind of underlying thing, which is, I think, being unleashed a little bit at the moment. But it looks to me like this woman's just trying to tap into that. And there's a lot of people on the internet, even if you explain, and I don't know this guy's story, so I don't feel like I could speak for him. I don't like the way he came across. There is a thing in the video that reminded me when I was learning Japanese. I had an English Japanese teacher who said that people who speak English, we don't travel well. We don't learn other people's languages. Growing up as a child in England, when they'd go into France and they'd run into someone who couldn't speak French, they'd say, well, first you try speaking English, and then if they don't understand English, then you speak louder in English, is what they were taught. There's a thing about an English guy insisting on, the sort of colonial sort of speak English thing that just is a bad look, even if it's explainable. But the thing is, one, I don't know if you can speak for them, and two, I don't know if the people who are outraged at this want to listen. They're just looking for, they're a pitchfork mob. They're just looking for someone to take down.
Yeah, but it's pretty disappointing as a person who lives here, and I do think that the way foreigners are treated on the internet sometimes is actually racist.
Yeah, like full on.
Yeah. And there was a news report that came out, which I do have a link to, but I'm not gonna put that because it's actual news report that said that Japanese are also guilty of being annoying in the tourists in Kyoto now. It's not just foreigners. It's just Japanese as well. And that's one reason that they decided to tie up the bell rope.
Yeah. Well, one thing that was interesting and good was that, the shrine announced a couple of days later that they are removing the bell at nighttime. But they also, the next day, but they also specifically said, we're not doing it because of foreign tourists. Japanese tourists actually misbehave on this as well. And there are people posting vids on the internet of drunk salarymen, shaking the things as well. Right. So they said, we're taking it down because of bad behavior, but we're not blaming, we are specifically not blaming foreigners because Japanese do this as well. So we're taking it down. So I thought the shrine kind of handled it in kind of a classy way, actually. They could have just said nothing and done it, and the rage mob would have gotten more with that. So I think the temple, not the temple, the shrine deserves credit for reading the room. There was a funny thing, by the way, when the tour guide was getting quite strong with the woman, and another tourist intervenes and says, "Hey, well, you understand why she's angry. I mean, if you were, you're disrespecting their temple." So she was trying to be like a peacemaker, but she was immediately identifying the Shinto shrine as Buddhist, which I don't think would actually offend a Japanese person. But I kind of thought it was nice. But it was a mistake. Hell, even I make that mistake.
And it's not illegal anyway, even if he's just being a jerk. And I mean,
yeah. So. Well, like I say, I kind of start with the idea that, I think this woman is either, got a rage control issue or was looking for trouble. She clearly it was resolved at one point, and then she turned around, she turned on her phone, started recording, and then said, "Hey, do you even know what you're apologizing for?" That's how the video starts, right? She's looking for trouble. So, yeah.
I asked a woman in my class she's 65, and another woman who's about 67, and they both said this woman is in her 50s and there's something wrong with her.
You get that vibe. The way that she's talking there's something off. Yeah.
And the other thing that was funny is we talked about the previous week. We talked about annoying tourists in Japan because of the Fuji mountain thing, the Lawsons and the Fuji. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we talked about chasing the geisha girls, and I showed them the video of the geisha being chased by the foreigners, and they said, "Well, if I saw geisha, I'd want to take a picture right away too." Well, I was like, yeah.
I mean, it's like in Japan, it's like a famous thing to see a real geisha. It's like, it's like it's a big deal.
It's not just something foreigners would do. I mean, Japanese would definitely do it too. They might not go to the extent of running down the street like that. But
Shubas says there must be a Japanese word for these Karens. It's kind of funny. Karen, of course, is a normal name for women in Japanese. It's funny because they don't call Karens even if they're Karens. I don't know what the term would. I mean, honestly, they would. I call this like a monster cackle or whatever.
There used to be a word 30 years ago that they don't use anymore called obitarian.
Oh, Obatarian.
Remember
It's kind
that?
of an Osaka. It's kind of like a middle-aged Osakan woman vibe thing. Yeah.
There are especially women who like jump in when they jump in to sit down on subway before
Yeah.
you, and they push you aside so they can get to the sale. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, but same kind of energy, same kind of vibe, I think.
Yeah. The middle-aged alien, a hybrid of Obasan and alien somehow becomes Obatarian. It's like, uh, yeah. No, that was
I want to say it had something to do with zombies, but maybe not Obitarian. I think
yeah,
it was.
maybe a different one.
Yeah. Anyway, how about that town? Was it in Shizuoka? Where the
Yeah, Shizuoka. Yeah.
in Shizuoka. So there's a small town in Shizuoka, and it's not. It's like a little bit off the beaten track, right?
Kawaguchiko. So Kawaguchiko, I've been to. It's got a lake and it's got a lot of photos of Mount Fuji behind a lake. It's got a famous thing. However, before you go to the lake, I mean, you've always got to stock up on some egg sandwiches and some onigiri. So what are you going to do, right? And
Strong
some
zero.
people just can't wait to get to the lake to take their photos,
Right.
and then chaos ensues.
So someone noticed that the Fuji Mountain, Fuji Mountain appears perfectly over the convenience store.
I
So
mean,
it kind of forms it looks like it's coming out
Mount
of
Fuji appears perfectly from any location in Shizuoka Prefecture, though. I get it. You cross the road from the Lawson, and you get it where it's like perfectly like behind the roof of the Lawson. But if you adjust your position, literally any house, any toilet, any building in Shizuoka, you have a perfect view of Mount Fuji. The whole prefecture.
But apparently,
Uh,
some foreigner had published his picture on Instagram or something there and
mm,
indicated where it was, so everyone knew where it was. So people were just flocking to this one convenience store. And in
yeah,
front of the convenience store, there's a dentist. So people would stand in front of the dentist and take pictures. And it was becoming difficult for the dentist, the patients to come in. And the dentist had to come out and pick up garbage all the time. So he got pissed off. He kept complaining. And they'd get like 3 complaints a week. So the mayor finally had got sick of it and I guess they put what exactly did they do? They put a big black, like,
it's like a mesh thing. So they put up a like a scaffolding sort of and that sort of black mesh that is like what they put on not plastic. It's like not like a camping sheet either, but it's a mesh. So it's got like so as the story will progress,
put it on the side of the road, so the people standing on the dentist property or on that sidewalk could no longer see the convenience store.
right.
Is that it?
Trying to take away the photo spot basically by blocking out Mount Fuji.
Right.
In fact, I thought they were going to put it behind the Lawson to sort of block out Mount Fuji in the background. But I think you're right.
It's in front.
Yeah, but they actually put it by the road, right? Because they didn't want people, and then people were spilling onto the road. They said it was sort of a safety
It was
hazard.
it was a hazard. People are walking in the street to get pictures, and they don't care about cars, because they're stupid. They're
Yeah.
stupid foreigners. So. Yeah, but that became a big story. But if you think about it, Japan is such a safe country that this becomes the big scandal of the, American president gets found guilty on 34 counts of what is it, felonies. But in Japan, this is the big
Whatever it was. Yeah.
we don't have anything bigger than that to talk about. So in a way, that's good. I mean, we don't have any.
But again, the
crime.
funniest part was like within days, the next, they found another Lawson, 500 meters up the road that had exactly the same view that you could do the same thing.
They all moved there.
Yeah. Well, that and the other big scandal. Of course, I have to show this so that me share my screen. Is let me see if I can get this bigger. Yeah, people could poke holes in the wall and see through it. And there were all these little holes big enough for a smartphone getting poked in the sheet. So immediately they said that they're going to replace it and use like a blue tarp or something else that's less easy to like poke holes in. But I don't know. They immediately found out that it was all kind of pointless. So. And this may all contribute to how the main correspondent in Japan from the BBC did an interview with the Japan Press Association paper saying how the hardest thing about covering East Asia is that there just isn't breaking news out here. Stories take years to unfold, and so we sit out here, but there's just no news stories for us to report on. Which is interesting when you're the only correspondent covering a region of, if you include China and Southeast Asia, of like 2 billion people,
So
and you insist that there's no news.
that's a good question. Maybe this is only news because there's nothing else. They have nothing else to report on, so it's a slow news day,
Well,
like they say, right?
it is certainly, yeah. And I must admit, if you ever watch the local news in Tokyo, yeah, like every part of Japan has the local version of NHK that just before like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, there's a 15-minute local news. So the local news, imagine the local news in Tokyo and Chiba. It's for Kanto. So the local news here covers 40 million people. It would still be like one of the biggest countries in the world. And they literally have, somebody grew a cucumber, shaped like a former samurai, or the kind of stories that they have would barely qualify as local news in New Zealand. So I must admit, it does feel a bit peaceful like that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like if you're like a professional journalist and you can't find a news story in the entire East Asia, the problem's probably not East Asia. It's probably you. But that's it. I mean, this is a big fuss.
The other big story, though, you mentioned on Twitter, and it got a lot of attention, was, oh yeah, Japan is the worst country in the world to help strangers.
Oh yeah. I got like so much reaction to this. This isn't even a new story. This came out months ago. I'll see if I can share it. But basically, it's funny. I could just show you the tweet because pretty much everyone just saw the tweet and lost their minds. No one actually read it, which I'm guilty. I'm the first to be guilty of that myself. Sure. But it was funny, the reaction. So let me pull it up here. Where was it? I had so many people that were so angry about this. Here, this one. Okay, Japan, the worst country in the world for helping strangers. It was almost nice to see how much people completely lost their shit over this.
Yeah.
I had so many, and it was mainly in the form of retweets saying that, well, I don't know, who wrote this story, but they don't know anything about Japan. I went to Japan last month and an old man helped me on the bus, and that would never happen in America. So clearly the survey's wrong. And you know what? I'm so glad that there are so many tourists who have come to Japan and have had nice experiences, as I had. I mean, that's why I moved here. And look, do I think Japan is the worst country in the world for helping strangers? I don't feel like that per se, but at the same time, I think I can understand. So what apparently this is, there's a World Giving Index, which is run by a UK sort of charity that monitors in different countries. They use a Gallup poll, where Gallup actually does a 30 to 60-minute interview with between 1,000 and 2,000 people from 145 countries.
That's a lot.
And they ask them all sorts of questions about, and including, have you recently helped a stranger? Huh. And other things to develop sort of a cultural profile of how countries rank up.
One of the questions? Have you recently helped a stranger?
Yeah, that's literally one of the questions. And they have other questions like this about religiousness and about, volunteer work and charitable activities and stuff like that. And on this index, at least done by that poll, and it's an in-depth poll. It's not a flippant thing. It's a lot of people and it's a long interview. They get this data back that says that most Japanese are like, and yet a lot of people reacting like, oh, they must have been talking to people from Tokyo. Tokyo people are mean. Or other people saying, well, Japanese are just so humble. They wouldn't brag about that sort of thing, whereas people in UK would brag about it even when they don't do it. So, and you know what? That's probably true. There's probably a cultural bias aspect to this. But fact is, I mean, the data is the data. If you ask 1,000 Japanese people, have you helped a stranger, and it's a low response rate. And apparently in Jamaica, they help everybody, and everybody says, oh, yes, I helped a stranger, 5 minutes ago.
But do you want to go to Jamaica?
Right now. I'd like to go to Jamaica. I mean, I know it has its pros and cons. I know it's not the safest place, but I'd still like to go.
Well, here's something. My family's originally from Peru, and my father would often tell us, Peruvians are so dishonest they can rip off your socks without taking off your shoe. They're just, and I've been to Peru, I mean, 20, 30 times to visit family and such. And, when you park your car, some little kid will come up to your car and say, hey, do you want me to watch your car? And you know what? You have to say yes. Because if you don't, when you come back, your car window's going to be broken or something's going to be missing. Something's going to be damaged. So basically, you have to pay. Oh, thank you. That's what I wanted. Yeah, you've got to what I'm saying is these other, and I've traveled from every country, from Mexico to Argentina, almost all of
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
besides Venezuela and Uruguay because it's hard to get into. Anyway, but they're all dangerous countries, man. People will
Yeah.
rip you off any chance they get, and at the very least, even if Japan is not friendly, you're not going to get ripped off here. I mean, I've left my camera at a phone booth. I left my mom lost her passport. I left my computer on a subway. I got everything back. People do not rip you off here. There's
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's not zero. It's not zero, but the idea that that's right. If someone
Well, that's helpful.
when I was backpacking in Argentina on the bus from the airport to the youth hostel, two different groups of kids were sitting behind me, and they tried to stick their hands in my backpack and stuff. So yeah, you just expect everybody's going to do it. But yeah, so interesting. I mean, you could say that there's it's because it's an Asian country and because they're not religious and they don't think they have to say that. But then I'd ask Poland, who hurt you? What's with Polish people? Interesting list.
Oh yeah.
Jamaica, Liberia, Libya helped a stranger.
France is not friendly. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I knew they were kind of not friendly, but not bottom 10. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because there is a thing you get in China that, how Good Samaritans in China often end up being accused of being the one who caused the harm so they can make them pay. And so you get these situations of people who run over in traffic accidents and they're left in the road. Right. But there's definitely a thing in Japan. There's definitely a thing in Japan that if you see a fight going on in the street or something like that, there's no Good Samaritans for that, right? People don't want to get involved in trouble. If they see someone genuinely in trouble on their own or something, I think if you fell in the street, people would come and help. But I can sort of see even that in Tokyo, I'd be a little bit worried. But I think this place is probably less willing to help strangers than Japan. I don't know why it came out this way. The other indices, by the way, and the other interesting ones, donated money to charities. Japan wasn't in the bottom for this, and I kind of understand. If you're like Lesotho or Afghanistan, I don't know if you donate money to charities. And again, how do they ask this? Does that include not lending your friends money or something like that? Again, Greece, who hurt you? I don't know what happened with them.
Myanmar, so high. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's tons of refugees at the moment in Myanmar. There's a lot of trouble going on there. And again, they interviewed 1,000 people from even Myanmar for the sort of survey. It's an amazing methodology, so it's a very thorough one when I looked at it. And volunteered time, people who spend time volunteering. This is another one. Working as a lawyer, we register, and there's kind of soft competition inside companies for how much pro bono time, how much free legal work time can you run up. And they count charitable work as pro bono. So sometimes I think we're supposed to be doing legal work, free, defending people on death row. And no, we go and pick up rubbish, and we're told that we can count that as pro bono time. So every time we go to America, they always say, hey, let's rack up lots of pro bono hours. Here are these fun, kind of irrelevant volunteer activities you can do. Whereas in Japan, even if you want to do that sort of thing, you can't really it's hard to find things like that you can do. They exist, but you have to really look for them. They're not as easy to find. So I don't know. But there again, of course there are civic groups and stuff like that. But it isn't as common, perhaps, to participate in volunteering in Japan, although it exists. Tons of volunteers went to the Noto Peninsula and stuff.
You know what? I know university students are kind of forced to volunteer as part of their class.
Yeah.
So one of my university students, he was volunteering one day, so he had to change the schedule for the class. And I'm like, well, that's nice, you're volunteering. That's great, good for you. And he's like, I kind of have to. It's kind of my school project.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's a thing with Japan as well. Whenever there's an earthquake or something, everybody volunteers, everybody helps, everybody donates. So it's maybe not routine or day to day, but Japanese step up when they need to.
Yeah, to each other, for each other.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I think that counts.
Yeah, Japanese are people, right? But when it comes to international things too, apparently Japanese, although I'm saying we as Japanese, I'm not Japanese, but Japanese don't accept immigrants and refugees, but they donate a lot to help those immigrants and refugees. Yeah. Which you could say it's a cop-out, but You Can't See Me is in the comment section if you go up a little bit.
Yeah.
She points out, didn't your wife get a prostate several years ago? Yeah, there's a video. I did see one. I did do that. That did happen.
You did do that. You did it?
Yeah. I caught I chased the guy down.
Yeah.
And he took the purse. and in the end, he didn't get away with it. But that's still the only person I've ever met, just by chance happens to be my wife. The only person I've ever met in Japan who's had her purse snatched has been my wife. What about you? Do you know anyone personally?
Never. In Japan, no. Never heard of anyone having their purse snatched in Japan.
You do see
I've seen on TV. What?
There are signs all over Nagoya that say, "Be careful, purse snatching happens around here."
Yeah, and in really, there are shitty neighborhoods, like in Shitamachi. There are certain parts of Shitamachi where there are still signs about like ataria, people who like bump into your car and claim that you hit them and try to, extort you for compensation. There's something you get in Osaka. I've seen signs for that, but other than that, no, I've never seen anything about like look out for pickpockets or, Ella, when there's a video of, like a pickpocket being caught in Japan, which there occasionally is, there was a video that went viral the other week of somebody in Ameoko, like a couple apparently working together. And the video went viral. But so the fact that there was a pickpocket in one of the most crowded tourist spots in Tokyo was big news among Japanese. It was a viral video. So it's unusual,
Right. So it doesn't
I've never seen or heard of it in 25 years. I've never seen or heard of what you had.
Of course, our subjective experiences are not scientifically valid, but you think you would at least know somebody, right? So.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I mean, you know what? When I was living in the suburbs, when I was living in the bed towns, burglaries are a thing that happen out in the suburbs. People break in. So you hear about burglaries a little bit, like during the day when people are working and those whole apartment blocks are empty. Akisu. You hear about Akisu as a problem in the suburbs.
Quite a bit, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, people leave the doors unlocked a lot. So.
Yeah.
But again, that's not targeting foreigners or tourists.
Speaking of foreign crime, Phil's mentioning he once saw a video of a guy tackling a guy that was hitting his girlfriend. Oh wait, that was Victor.
And she attacked me back when I attacked him. She climbed up my back to stop me from hitting him.
It was a debacle. Yes, it was a fun times.
But so when I first came to Japan, I remember I would this is pre-cell phone days, so you didn't have Google Maps. You actually had physical maps that you had to open up and look around. And they used to give them out. They used to give out maps all over Tokyo and Nagoya too. Right, you walk. There would be a Tokyo map you just pay for free, and it had advertising on it. But if you were to open one of these and stand outside, no one would come to help you, even if you're obviously lost, right? Or if you stare at a big map, in the subway. In
Tokyo, that was my first experience of Tokyo. Was that in Fukuoka, people dive at you? So, what are you talking? Are you talking about overseas or Japan?
Yeah, but 3 months later, I went to South Korea. And immediately people, oh, can I help you? As soon as they take out the map, oh, can I help you? People are super friendly in Korea,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And look, I had that in Fukuoka. Fukuoka was like that. Tokyo, I expected to be like that when I was looking lost at a big road map and nobody stopped. When you're confused looking at the subway map in Tokyo, nobody stops to help you.
Yeah.
But in Fukuoka, people do. Or they did in 1991 anyway. But yeah. So sure. It's probably a big city thing. Too many people, no one's got time. But
Well, 1991 though, foreigners were still pretty rare.
Oh yeah, very rare. Yeah. So you're getting attention anywhere. Probably back in those days, even in Tokyo, people would have stopped and helped you. So I also qualify. I assume Fukuoka is still friendly like that, but it might have gotten more of a big city thing since I was last living there, or since I was last there.
I often ask foreigners, "Can I help you? You guys lost? You guys okay?
Yeah.
Can I help?"
By the way, DJ Sunny Side Up has a question. Do you hear about squatters in Japan? To which I would say no. I couldn't even tell you what the word for a squatter is. There's a problem of this sort of all these empty houses, all these akiya. If you're a squatter, this is a squatter's paradise. Take your pick. There's like 40 million, unoccupied houses in Japan. So no, you never hear about it as a problem.
No, I've never heard of it at all. Yeah. It must exist, you would think, right?
It must exist. I do hear that, I think. So what's the situation? Part of the reason that they make you get a guarantor with your apartment is I think there is a thing that it's really hard to kick out tenants. So if you've got someone who doesn't pay rent or whatever, or they stop paying rent, the reason that they claim the bond money and they make you have a hoshonin is that they can go make your parents pay your rent for you or whatever if you don't move out. But I think that's based on the idea that they can't really force you out. So, but there again, I've never heard about squatters as a specific problem. Just bad, bad tenants are maybe a problem. But,
It's really bad in America once you're in there. It's hard to get you up. But I would think it's a lot easier in Japan. I don't know though. I've never heard.
Yeah.
People also don't exist.
Well, Clever's Tenchi got help with the subway map in Tokyo in 2010. So there you go. Yeah. Well, that's nice. Well, yeah, you were lucky. You had a nice person walking by. But it was like rush hour when I was there. Nobody was stopping. This is my first experience backpacking when I came to Tokyo in the mid 1990s. So yeah.
I probably love it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's but would you say overall, do you feel like does that resonate? Does that feel right that Japan is the worst country in the world at helping strangers?
I don't think.
No, it doesn't ring true for me either.
I think the fact that people don't rip you off is a big plus here. I mean, that's a major thing when you're traveling. I've been in so many countries where that's. I mean, my brother was got his ass kicked in Spain by gypsies who tried to rip him off. That's probably racist to even say that, but that's a story.
And I hated this. This is one thing about going to Europe that I hated is that when you're in Romania, people say be careful of the gypsies, and you go to Spain and people say be careful of the North Africans. But when you run into trouble, and this was in Madrid, when you have multiple times people pickpocketing you, it was always well-dressed guys who look like they're from Morocco or something, and unfortunately you start like trying to cross the street to avoid when you see, which I guess is how that starts. People warn you, say don't say that, that's racist, but then that's exactly what happens. So yeah, it's a problem.
America, it's there we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a squatter. I looked up.
Well, Kyojusha. Well, that makes exactly that's a.
DJay Sonny, I know who you are, man. Yeah.
Yeah, B-boy tripping.
Didn't you come to my house? Isn't your wife named Tomoko or something?
Don't dox him.
I think this is a guy who can do a flag. What I'm talking about, like a human flag. This guy's in great shape. If it's the same guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah, but he's I think you know who he is.
Yeah.
But Ganda Earth Guy. Well, I think what we're saying is Japan really doesn't have this issue the way that other countries do. I think Japanese do. I will tell, even in Tokyo as well. I think the day-to-day participation in charity groups and volunteer groups and stuff, I don't think that's necessarily as strong in urban and big cities in Japan. But I think the idea of being willing to help strangers is definitely there. I think probably if you ask people, have you really helped a stranger? Again, a lot of people said this must just be modesty. I get the feeling that probably is kind of part of it, maybe. Maybe people who are responding positively in United States are doing less than a Japanese is doing, but taking credit for it and Japanese aren't. That's one thing a lot of people said. I don't know what it... Well, I don't know.
How many times have you ended up having drinks with someone you just met in a bar?
Oh, not often, no.
No?
I'm trying to think. I mean, you and I are different like that. I'll be drinking and maybe, you know what? I'll join up with a group. Yeah. Maybe, but I mean, I don't drink that much to start with. And if I drink, I'm going out and catching up with friends. It's happened that you might have a brief conversation or
like
a few times.
Your friends and another group of people might start chatting and have a couple drinks together.
I mean, in my 20s, that happened a lot. I must admit, I've become a big city guy. I'm not really looking to join up with other groups like that so much nowadays. But yeah, I was younger. I mean, if you want to do that, you can do it.
This happens all the time. But I mean, I've gone to if I remember going to sumo the 2 or 3 times. I've been to sumo quite a few times, but I remember 2 times distinctly. The people next to us would offer us sake from their bottles.
Oh yeah. Seems
like it's pretty friendly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I think that's right, especially if I think there's also as well, if you're a foreigner, there's this other thing as well, how Japanese act to each other as, if they see a foreigner, they'll assume that you're a tourist and they'll put you into okyakusama mode, which is a little bit different to maybe how they would treat a regular stranger Japanese, at least in a city, right? And this is another thing that you do hear sometimes, that Japanese can be kind of unfriendly towards each other a little bit. But I think they're great towards tourists, and we benefit from the assumption sometimes that people will make when they see us, that the default assumption is naturally that we must be tourists, and yeah, people will be a little bit, extra nice because of that, and then extra surprised when it turns out that we've lived here and we speak Japanese. I think we always get a benefit of that as well. So, and visible foreigners, visible foreign tourists get treated a lot better than people who don't stand out as much. So Asian tourists and so on, I'm pretty sure, still get treated well, actually, like Taiwanese and East Asian friends who visit Japan all tell me how much they love it, but I'm sure that we get special treatment. Well, yeah.
Someone's asking me about hotel recommendations, but I have no idea. I don't stay in hotels in Nagoya. So I would imagine people always ask me that question, but I don't stay in hotels.
Yeah, I get that as well. I get people coming to Tokyo. Hey, I'm coming to Tokyo. Can you recommend a hotel? It's like, I don't. Only time I've ever had to stay in a hotel in Tokyo was when I was kicked out, which was because I'd been on an overseas trip and my family was quarantining me for COVID when I got back. So, it's pretty much only if I ever get sick or something and I get kicked out. It's not.
But good point. Yeah. One of my friends, Carlos, who lives in Florida, whenever he comes to Japan, he always uses the Airbnbs. And even when I travel, like when I go to Takayama or something with my kids, I use Airbnb. So, with the Kyushu, Airbnbs. Yeah, do that.
The kids these days, yeah, they use their Airbnbs, and I've talked to people who've used them. One, they seem to be easy to use and good, and people I've heard have had great experiences using Airbnbs, and they actually sometimes you even get to meet the owner and stuff. Yeah, it's like, and even if you don't, it sounds like it's a pretty good deal. So Airbnb seems to be the way to go. But again, I've used Airbnb a couple of times when I went to New Zealand and stuff like that. But people who come here already know how to use all this stuff better. So yeah, I'm terrible for advice for this. DJay Sunny Side Up recommends love hotels.
They're fun. If you're only going to sleep for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it's actually, kind of makes sense. Because they rent the rooms out all day, they can give you bigger, better rooms at a lower rate. But
Dan H doesn't like Airbnbs. I've had only good experiences with Airbnbs.
Yeah, I've had meh experiences with Airbnbs. It served the purpose. I wanted to find a place close to where my uncle was living, and Airbnb I could find around the corner, so that was perfect.
Well, off the subject, but kind of important. They just announced, and I put it in my video too. They just announced a couple of days ago that Shibuya will be banning alcohol drinking on the streets year-round.
Really?
Starting October 1st.
October 1st.
For everybody.
So, you know what, though? I mean, instead of targeting foreigners and targeting Halloween, starting at the start of October and year-round, why not? I mean, honestly, Shibuya's kind of... Parts of Shibuya, like around Sentagai, are kind of crap holes, and you have people, and honestly, it's mostly Japanese. In the mornings, I used to go to work. I used to walk through Shibuya on the way to and from work, and in the morning, you get all the people who've been out the clubs and the bars all night and stuff, falling over in the streets everywhere, and yeah, it's kind of crappy, going through Shibuya in the morning.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I do wonder for a neighborhood that's maybe second to Shinjuku as the main going out and drinking and having fun neighborhood in Tokyo, like if they're banning. But there again, you shouldn't have to drink in the streets. There is a thing as well that foreigners in New Zealand, I think you probably do this in America as well, right? Before you go into bars where they charge more for the drinks, you go to a convenience store and you sort of load up on some strong zeros before going into the bars to save money. I think that's something probably a lot of foreigners probably do in Shibuya, they're drinking on the streets.
Right.
Which actually would piss off all the shop owners as well, because they're missing out on that as well. So it could be aimed at that. I must admit, you see drunk Japanese, but you don't necessarily see so many Japanese drinking on the street in Shibuya. You do see it, but I think maybe that's kind of a foreign thing. But yeah, seems fair enough.
Aaron actually is putting addresses of good Airbnbs in them. That's good. That's cool.
Okay, there's a Mishku hosted by Miho. Okay, this is
Minchiku. Okay.
Yeah, a Daisaku Shotengai. I don't know the location, but thanks for the recommendation.
It's very fun.
Always good with the recommendation.
It's like a little Tokyo in Nagoya. Hiko, where do you get your what's happening in Japanese news? I often hit Reddit to see what's on Reddit.
I've got an RSS. I use Twitter. I've got some accounts that I follow, including journalists, and I see what they're talking about if there's anything big.
Have you seen Twitter change much since Elon took over? I mean, what have you noticed?
Well, because I control, I don't look at the home feed. I just I follow lists of accounts. Mm-hmm. So I've noticed a lot of people that I like to follow have left the account in moral outrage at Elon and right-wing trolls. I don't really see that stuff because, like I say, I just look at specific people. I think I see a little bit of less participation than before. But, I'm sure if you go looking for all the stuff that they were talking about the stuff about there being more Nazis on the site and stuff like that, I don't see that. But I have no reason not to believe it's not there. I find it's a bit quieter. There's not as much stuff as before.
Do you pay for it?
What?
Do you pay for it?
Do I pay for it? No, I do not. No, I must admit, sometimes I would like the extra characters. I think there are some people who are still like, oh, don't you dare pay money to Elon, that you're supporting the Nazis if you pay money for a Twitter account. I don't really care that much. I just don't see, I get perfectly good value out of it for free.
Well, you've got your own community and everything works out. So,
yeah. Someone saying they should clip out me. Do you think that's right? Is Japan the worst country in the world? Yeah. You can probably edit that.
We've done 2.5 Oyajis in the past where people will misinterpret our jokes or comments.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We were talking about the comfort women quite a few years ago.
Yeah,
and I made an offhand joke. Well, American soldiers never did anything like that. Of course they did.
Oh, of course they did. Yes.
And I was talking about.
I mean, the fact that they're called comfort women, the fact that they have an English term for that is because they needed to advertise them to the GIs. So yes.
No, but I was talking about in France.
Right? Oh, that as well. Yeah, yeah.
So someone mentioned it. And I was like, no, that's never happened as a joke. But that clip got taken out, and someone put it on Twitter and said, I completely deny. I deny American crimes. God, who cares about this stuff?
Well, people are idiots. So I don't know. I find less of that. I find both here and there, like people who know me. I think the whole world that's interested in anything that I have to say has pretty much already found me. So you don't get anyone who's discovered this outrageous New Zealander. I don't really run into that so much anymore. DJ Sunnyside Up asks a question. How do I keep my mental health when a lot of news is negative and fear-based? I personally, I don't like crime news. That's one thing. I don't like to talk about like people just doing horrible things. Mm-hmm. I sort of like to think at a higher level, sort of lead stories on the news type things. And I also found for mental health, avoiding American news entirely, particularly with the election, all the craziness coming up, because it's just watching just a mob of crazy people talking to each other. Like there's no participation in that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just following Japan and just stuff that I find interesting, geopolitical, economic, cultural, AI, sports. I just stick to stuff that I like. I don't go to. If I understand a lot of people, I've heard about the sort of anxiety that a lot of young people feel about like even from climate change. Like people feel like they're sort of hopeless. I think when you have like the pandemic and you have all this world, all this news about how the world is sort of going to hell and how powerless people are. I've heard this really is something affecting like the mental health of a lot of young people. Maybe it's partly age that I've just sort of locked in. I've always been interested in news anyway. I have a politics degree.
I think it's interesting that the word doom scrolling was even created.
Yeah. Well, this is it as well. I think the other thing is I am self-aware of having my buttons pressed. You get that little rush of adrenaline sometimes when you go to post something on a website. I always, whenever I feel like someone's baiting me or I'm being baited by, this outrageous thing that Trump said or something like that, and I feel myself moving, I immediately sort of give myself a timeout and I make sure, I've got a rule, I never post anything when I feel my adrenaline's up. Even if I think it's right.
You walk away. See your heart rate?
I don't do that, but I know that it's actually not even the heart rate; it's the stomach. Japanese has a great word, mukatsuku, that we don't have in English. You know how mukatsuku can both mean it pisses you off, but it can also mean you can be describing like nausea. You know what I mean? It's that knot in your stomach that you get when you feel nauseous. You can literally describe it to a doctor that I feel a bit muka, like a little bit mukatsuku, but it also is what you say when you're pissed off. but it's literally that knot in your stomach that you get. So much social media is designed to induce that, and not reacting to it, not going down the rabbit hole with that is really important. So I actually turn away from news that causes that reaction, especially because it's normally designed to be that way when it does. So yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, which I use. I used to listen to more news podcasts, but now I listen to podcasts that are educational. Or there's one really good one. I mentioned it in the post before. It's called Story Corps. Story Corps.
Story Corps. Okay.
Well, it's spelled corpse, but Story Corps.
Yeah, core. Yeah.
They just tell. There's this van. I didn't even know this happened. There's a van that goes all around America, and it's got a sound inside. And they just stop. They let people come in, make appointments, and you can just tell them your story. And of all those thousands of stories, a lot of them are kind of boring, but some of them are really, really interesting. And people tell stories, and I find that a lot of those are just so positive. You just find out these wonderful stories that you hear. People dealing with frustration, how they deal with their problems, and they're often pretty funny, and they have nothing to do with the news at all.
Yeah. I must admit, I listen to a lot of sort of podcast content on YouTube. I do it through YouTube, but I'll listen to it on audio. And I've been getting into Diary of a CEO, which is mostly like health stuff lately. Maybe it's a sign of age. They get these sort of medical, they get these experts that tell you how to be healthy and lose weight and all this sort of stuff. And they're really, really good. And they give you like the latest science on avoid processed sugars and all this sort of stuff, and here's the science behind what sugar does to you, and it's like, oh, this is kind of good. Even that, I suppose, in a way, could trigger. It's really good. Yeah, Diary of a CEO. It's a YouTube channel. They put really long, like 1.5 hour sort of videos, but they're really good interviews. They get really great, interesting people.
They're super long. Yeah.
It is long, so I always listen to it at double speed, and when I'm on the train going to work or something like that. But they're pretty entertaining, actually, and informative. And that's it. They got all this information. As I see it, I try to be proactive about selecting what information I feed myself, because there's a lot of information there in that competition that's aiming for your
attention,
your fear. What is it? Fight or flight response. There's a lot of news that's aiming for your fear and for all this sort of stuff. And I think you got to sort of take control and decide where you get your stuff from a little bit. But yeah, there's plenty of great information out there as well. You just have to work a little bit harder to find it. The bad stuff is easy to find.
Yeah, well, we respond to the negative. What's this? Do you remember that time she blinded me with science? What's he talking about? That's a song.
No idea.
She blinded me with science. It's a song lyric, but I don't know why he's mentioning that. Yeah.
I don't know. That reminds me of the viral side. See, the internet used to be more fun. YouTube used to be more fun. You remember when there's that guy who did the song "Fuck You Science, Fuck You," and he's talking about how he could tolerate Pluto being demoted as a planet, and he could tolerate all these scientific things. But when he found out that dinosaurs had feathers, he just lost his shit and decided to sing a song called "Fuck You Science." I like those. Those were better. Those were better times.
You'll have to look that up again. All right.
Yeah.
So next week we got. Is that for sure?
Well, yeah. Well, not for sure. I've still got to lock down a date, but I've talked with her before. I won't say her name here, as I don't know if she wants to have her name out on this or how she wants to present. But a really great guest who's really deep in issues about problems that AI are presenting and so on, and interested in that, particularly how it's affecting artists and stuff.
Successful artist.
Yeah. So it'll be a good counterpoint, I suppose, to Marcos the other week. But it's topic of our time. So really, will be a great guest.
Right.
And yeah, even though apparently if you've heard of Francis Fukuyama, he's an American university professor who declared when Soviet Union fell, he declared that the end of history. History has ended. He meant it in terms of big ideological conflicts between communism and capitalism. There's no more. There'll be dictatorships, and there'll be arseholes, and there'll be populists, but there'll be no more big philosophical division of the world anymore. Everyone sort of agrees that democracy is the way to go. So he declared that an end of history, all of human history, building up to what's the right ideology, is finished. Democracy's it. Democracy won. Congratulations, everybody. Which everybody kind of makes fun of how, 30 years ago, Francis Fukuyama declared an end of history. I find it interesting that although there's been a declaration of an end to news in Japan, there is no longer any news in Japan. I think there'll still be news. It's just not quite as anxiety-inducing, which is why I like to follow it and why I like to share it.
Mm.
So yeah,
I just looked them up. Okay, I'll check that out. Check that out. The End of History and the Last Man.
Yeah. It's kind of pole science nerds like to pull it up all the time. A lot of people mocked it, of course, but he declared it's like the George Bush on the ship saying, declaring mission accomplished like 2 weeks into the Gulf War. Some people sort of said, how could anyone declare the end of history? History, it appears, wants to keep going. But but it's actually not as unreasonable as it presents. There's a whole thing about whether history has ended or not.
I wonder, how basically media has become monetized? I mean, you can't really...
Yes.
You can't really...
Yeah, news has gone down the crapper. Yes, absolutely.
So I'm wondering, have they monetized history yet?
If they can find, I suppose there are elements of it. I mean, there's always been revisionism has always been a big industry, right? Printing a book that has a new take on history, that that Hitler was actually nice to dogs, the what they didn't teach you about World War II. People are always trying to come up with a shocking new perspective on history, which always takes people in.
Did you hear what they're coming out with the second season of Shogun and third season of Shogun?
Oh no! Really? Yeah. Are they going to do that? Well, that's the monetization of history, I suppose. That's always been there.
Shogun, what was it? Is on. I said on Disney, but when they were done with it, they said, "Well, that was it. We just want to do one season. We don't have any plans." But then, I guess someone said, "Well, this made a lot of money, so we should do season 2 and season 3." So they're doing it now. They announced it.
There we go.
So yeah, it's not exactly history, but.
Just when he thought he got out of Japan, they pulled him back in. The story of our lives. I mean, they should be trying to monetize us as historical artifacts. What could we do?
Speaking of our lives, I'm sure you and I will someday be mentioned on Unrested's new.
Oh yes, I've been enjoying. He did what's his face? Yeah, not
Ryan Boundless.
Yes, he did Boundless the other day. I was like, oh yeah, he's working. It's like a greatest hits radio station of J-vloggers.
Unrested is doing a series on old time J-vloggers.
Yeah,
so he just did
reviving the old drama.
He did one on the Kanajin Sun.
Yeah,
and, I don't know who else, but you probably have said Ryan Boundless.
Ryan Boundless. I still love. We talked about it on 2.5 Oyajis when he talked about like the egg sandwich outside of the Lawson and just Japan. There's just not enough food. Just look at the size of the sandwich. And he was doing it tongue in cheek, and it was fun. We both thought it was fun, but people got people like Japan, bottom country in the world. Some people just want to fight. So
Anyway, we had him on the show, did we?
We never did. But I would have been happy to. But I think I heard someone mention. I think Unrested mentioned he's in Africa or something like that, and doing well. And loving it. So well, so we'll be back next week. I'm going to do an after party. I'm going to do a DJ set where I'll be playing all of your requests. I played a really fun set last night, actually, but which you can also check on the channel. So we'll be back. Do another 2.5 Oyajis probably next week when we get the AI thing sorted out.
As usual, Nico.
Sorry.
Thanks for having me as usual.
No, it's nice to get the 2.5 Oyajis back on the road actually.
And we'll see you next Friday or Saturday, right?
Probably next Saturday, but we'll see if we can set it all up. So great to see you all. Hang around. There is a live stream link for the music after show. But otherwise, have a good night and see you next week. And boom, peace.
Bye.
See ya. Victor always leaves. Like we can hang around and say see you later afterwards, but he just like dives out. He leaves me all alone here hanging. Victor, you leave me hanging. It's okay. Ending stream. See you later. See you in a couple of minutes.